recruiting-ish. Web3, world-class podcast. Let's get it, let's go. The topics of discussion you cannot get from another. Opportunities in Web3, we got you covered. Metaintro, been dope. Gotta thank you for the love and support that you give it, keep it coming. We going up in jet speeds, interviews with the crews, making moves, let's see. It's a brand new world of NFTs. Join in Recruiting-ish podcast, yes please. Join in Recruiting-ish podcast, yes please. Metaintro does not give financial advice. Information provided by Metaintro is intended to be used and must be used for informational purposes only. Always do your own research on the companies that you apply to and the opportunities that you invest in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Recruiting-ish podcast. My name is Alex. I'm a crypto recruiter. I'm here with Lacey and her barking dog.
Oh my gosh. Hi, dogs. I promise they will be quiet for this episode. Actually, I don't promise. I gave them cookies before the episode, as I do every episode. I begged my dogs. I say, please, I will trade you a cookie just so you can be quiet for this episode. But I think one of the dogs is done with his cookies.
Yeah, I think they're raising another cookie round or something. They
I know.
Gotta get some more in there. But
they're smart dogs.
Well, interesting episode we've got here. I mean, there's been, I don't even know what to call it, just craziness in the market of crypto, of banking. We're recording this on Thursday, March 16th. It'll go live and you'll be listening to this on Tuesday, March 21st. But last week was nuts. Banking sector kind of fell apart. A lot of large banks, again, coming apart at the seams. Craziness on crypto Twitter, a lot of people freaking out, a lot of retail users, founders, Lacey included, being affected by this. So this episode's a little different. We're just talking about kind of what happened from a founder's perspective, from somebody in Web3, and kind of what this means and what it was like going through and how to go forward. So Lacey, I don't know where you want to start or what context you want to give, but
yeah,
tell us a little bit about the wild week that you've had.
Yeah, let's talk about the SVB crash from a startup founder's perspective. Because if you were scrolling through crypto Twitter over the past weekend, most likely the people that you saw tweeting were the VCs and the people mocking the founders that decided to stay at SVB, or unintentionally were still had their money locked up in SVB. So just to paint a picture of what my Thursday looked like of last week, I'm on my couch watching the news at night. Have my dogs. We just my boyfriend and I just ate dinner, and scrolling through Twitter, and I see some people starting to talk about the stock falling with SVB. That did not necessarily raise an alarm with me. I didn't quite think that it would have eventually escalated to what it was. For context, I've been with SVB since the start of Metaintro. The fact that SVB banked us was a really big deal. Banking with SVB in the startup world is kind of like banking royalty, if you will. In a lot of ways, there's prestige that comes with it. The startup founders and the venture funds that the bank banks is, a laundry list of like the biggest and the best. And we had to go through a ton of diligence just to get in. And then they finally said yes. And so it was a big moment for us banking with SVB. The interest rate was also great, so we were super happy with it. We parked a ton of our cash there, and went on with our lives. Fast forward to Thursday, scrolling through Twitter, I see a ton of people just starting to talk about the stock crashing. Somebody writes, startup founders should probably get their money out. And I tweet on top of it jokingly, should I get my money out? Joking. Not really thinking much of it. And then the next morning at like 6 a.m., I'd say, my phone started to go off just from like notifications, chats from other people, other founders, and my co-founder that says, we need to get our money out of SVB now. And I write back, yeah, I'm going to get it out today. Don't worry about it. And then I would say around 8 a.m. I would say around 9 a.m. I get a call from one of my investors that says, you took your money out, right? And I said, well, I was going to get to it today and hadn't seen the news quite yet. And so he says, the FDIC just shut down the bank, or the government just shut down the bank. And it took a minute just to process what that even meant. And so immediately, I went to my computer, went to my bank account to try to log in. Couldn't log in, got a 404 error, called my co-founder frantically. I'm like, how the F do we get our money out of the bank? And this was a substantial amount of money, parked with SVB. Luckily, we did have capital in another bank, just enough to operate. But had we not been able to get our money out of SVB, we would have had to drastically change operations and our strategy as to how we were going to get to the next round of capital. And that was a theme of something that I thought about throughout the entire weekend was, I may never see that amount of capital again. How is this affecting our runway? Who do I have to lay off? How are we going to hit the metrics we promised to hit in order to trigger the next round of fundraising? How is this going to affect our community? Not to talk more so about Metaintro and what that means for the job seekers in our community, but if things didn't unfold over the weekend the way that they did, and this past week, or if you're listening to this episode on Tuesday, the weekend prior to this, a ton of people would have been laid off, and I wouldn't have had anywhere to place these individuals. So I just imagine great, we have half the amount of capital that we did before. I have to lay off certain people on my team. I have, if not hundreds, thousands of job seekers in my community upset because there's no jobs to forward them to. It would have been a really bad unraveling. And so it was a long weekend, to say the least. I think there were a ton of takeaways over how I handled the weekend that I am very proud of. And that includes open communication with my team, constant communication with my investors, and strategizing on how we would move forward as a company without that capital. And so a ton of lessons learned over the weekend on the importance of diversifying your portfolio, banking with bigger banks, maybe the importance of DeFi. We are in Web3. And then I think overall, just learning how to remain calm in a situation like that, I think was a big takeaway. It was tough. It was a very tough weekend. So anyways, the weekend unraveled as it did. I was obviously glued to the TV with the news, glued to crypto Twitter. And come Monday morning, obviously we were extremely excited to be able to take out our capital. However, couldn't. So Monday was also very stressful. We had no success in taking out our money. The site would crash every time we got to the next page. So Monday was also super stressful. Tuesday, we finally wired the money out and then got a message Wednesday of last week saying, hey, just so you know, all of the wires were canceled. That went out because the bank couldn't handle how much money was being wired out. And so everything else to say, capital is safe, but it was definitely a pretty crazy weekend. The funniest thing, however, and this is the last thing I'll say in it, the funniest thing from this past weekend was SVB finally called us on Tuesday, our banker. And, she called, and I love this banker. She's wonderful. She had to apologize on behalf of the bank, which is nuts. And the first thing I told her was, I hope to God you are getting paid double time. The fact that you have to call all of these incredibly angry founders and VCs and apologize on behalf of the bank, I hope you are making so much money to do that. And, she laughed. And so I get my co-founder on the phone, and one of the first things he says is, what kind of incentives do you have for startup founders to stay with the bank? And I was like,
Of
Brad,
hey,
smart
gotta
man.
ask.
So she didn't have an answer, but I could assume, just given the communications that I'm getting and whatnot, that there will be some incentives to stay with the bank. But I don't know why I would have any reason to stay with SVB. I just think that the way that they handled communication, the way that, they how everything happened. They've lost my trust as a customer, which is super unfortunate because I was a very big fan of the bank. So now we've moved our money elsewhere into other banks, diversified, and all the funds are safe. So long story, but crazy weekend, and what a ride.
Definitely not on the bingo card by any means, right? It's like when you open up a bank. I mean, I've never opened up a bank account and thought I'm gonna have to worry about this money, right? Especially like in your case when you do raise a substantial round, and it's a lot of money, right? Like that is what pays you, your people, gets you further. I mean, it's your baby, right? So like to be getting locked out of that and again restricted because of something a bank did is crazy. And that's, I think, what the hardest part for me to watch too from the outside looking in was like there was no communication and I wasn't even a part of the bank, right? Like I think founders took to Twitter or LinkedIn or just again their socials. VCs were doing the same, saying like we haven't heard from anybody, right? Like similar, it took about a week to actually get somebody from the bank on the phone or via email to tell you what happened or what's next, which is nuts, right? It's just crazy. Do you ever think like I got to call, I got to get this, I got to push it, or are you just like I got to get the money out, forget if I ever talk to somebody from this bank ever again?
Yeah, I just had to get the money out. Your job as a startup founder is to protect your capital and your runway at all costs. And so the first thing I thought was like, how on earth do I get my money out? And so Friday, there's an SVB branch in Beverly Hills, which is the closest branch next to me. It was like very much a Hail Mary. And I don't know if anybody else listening saw the tweets of the founders outside of SVB up in, I think it was in Menlo Park, the line of people angrily trying to get their money. That was me, but in Los Angeles. So I go up to the bank. There's no one, literally lights are out. There's a notice on the on the door that says, sorry, we were shut down. And I look in the window and I'm like, wow, this seems desperate right now, but there's a lot of cash in the bank and I have to get it out. And so I go up to the ATM machine, I put my card in, just fingers crossed. There's a hiccup in the system.
Did you bring like duffel bags just in case?
Seriously. I mean, it was like, gosh. I will pull out that capital in 20s. Like I will do whatever I have to do to get the money out. And so I put my card in, put my PIN in, and then of course I get an error. It spits the card back out. And the receipt says transaction cannot be processed, and the bank account numbers say 0. And that receipt and that credit card might be framed at some point, just as a reminder of what happened. But I looked down and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And so I called a friend who gave me a number to another banker at the bank. I called him. I texted him. I'm like, Hail Mary here that he can help us get money out of the bank. I saw, people on TikTok saying, I know Elon Musk, what do I do to get my money out of the bank? Like literally doing whatever they can to move their funds. And so after I went to SVB, I went to JP Morgan, and, banking in Web3, if you're a founder and you're listening to this, you know how difficult it is to get a bank to bank you. And that's why we were so excited. That's one of the reasons we were so excited to bank with SVB was, oh my gosh, it's such a great bank. And they're willing to bank us, even though we're in Web3. And so, that morning I'm calling other banks, trying to see who will bank us. I'm getting no's. I go to JP Morgan and I go into the private client area and I sit down and I look at the woman across and I was like, please bank us. I just want to give you our money. Like, what do I need to do to move our funds over? And so, luckily, Metaintro doesn't have a token associated with it. We're not like a crypto company, if you will, in the traditional sense. So they were able to do some things in order to get us approved. But opening up that account and then hearing the murmurs of the other founders in the room telling the exact same story of, I bank with SVB, all of my funds are tied up. I have to move money into this. Like, what can I do? I mean, there must have been at that moment, there must have been 5 or 6 other founders in the room just trying to move their funds. And so, luckily, again, we had our capital diversified, but I think about the horror stories that I saw on Twitter of, I just raised $10 million 30 days ago. I can't pay anyone. I think about like Etsy. Etsy had their funds parked with SVB, and that trickle down effect would have been insane all the way down to the customers. And I think my favorite one, which is the last one I'll leave on, was I saw somebody tweet, I bank both business and personal with SVB. I'm trying to get to South by. I'm at the airport. Someone please Venmo me. Like, she can't even pay with her credit card for her baggage,
Crowdfunding. Oh,
I know. So, there were a ton of like other options that were going around just in case and I know Jeffries was paying 70 cents on the dollar. That's scary. I mean, that would have been, if we took that, we would have lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it was also a moment of, well, better a few $100,000 than a few million, right? I guess we'll just eat ramen, again.
It's crazy, right? That's even like a business model to kind of find distressed companies in these moments of, again, panic. And I'm sure a lot of people took that. I mean, I've heard as low as 30 cents on the dollar for people just taking what they can get and walking away. And then again, within 24 to 48 hours, making a definite mistake on that. But it's hard to know that. Again, I don't think anybody saw what happened coming that quickly. It was good that they got it together. It's insane that it happened, but it's great that they put this package together and everybody was able to get out. But it is weird, right? It's like some people probably went to JP Morgan and they were like, we can't or don't want to take your money. You're either in the wrong industry or we just don't, need it, don't want it. And that was kind of the undertone of all the banking shutdowns and failures, was like this anti-crypto movement almost, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems like, banking and crypto right now are going through kind of a weird moment where there is very few people left that want to deal with any money coming in and out of crypto, especially from startups.
Yeah. Well, and we also didn't mention the depegging over the weekend from the USDC, USDC. And I remember on, I think it was Saturday night, that Circle announced how much in funds they had locked with SVB. And I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, the crypto industry is going to crumble if they can't get their money out. Like, Circle is such a massive company, and if they hadn't been able to get out their funds, that would have had a pretty massive impact on our industry.
Yeah, I think it depegged all the way down to like the low 80s at one point. And huge, right? I mean, like USDC probably the most trusted, or at least the most publicly facing. Tether, obviously, probably the biggest stable coin, but there's been some concerns about their reserves as well. And just a weird day in the market of, what am I going to do with all this money tied up in all these places, right? It was like crypto wasn't safe, whether you had cash in Coinbase, USDC in a wallet, Bitcoin, any other asset. You had it in a bank, right? Even from like startup bank all the way down to like I was moving funds around in my SoFi checking account to my Fidelity investment account, like just trying to like make sure like, hey, even if nothing happens, it's not worth the risk, right? Like trying to consolidate and just be safe. As well as like my parents were calling me like, is this the end of crypto? Are you going to be okay? Like what's going on? And it's weird. It's like this week has definitely seemed calmer, but then as we're recording this in between, today and yesterday, it's like same things now going on with First Republic Bank, maybe some other ones. Charles Schwab is in the news. I mean, there seems to be some ripples that are coming from this, and it's kind of spooky. That's kind of the word I've been using.
My boyfriend banks with Wells Fargo and B of A, and on Saturday he went and he just like removed all of his funds. He took everything out. And granted, like those are massive banks, are they too big to fail? Who knows? But it was just funny to see him literally pull over to the side of the road, like with no context to me. And he's like, I'll be right back. Goes to the bank, comes back and took out all of his money. And, there was another startup founder that I saw on Twitter that said they pulled all of their funds out. I don't know where they ended up putting the money, but it sounds like, putting it under your mattress is also a good safe bet. So
that's
high,
the joke
still
I
high
heard.
risk, still high risk. But anything to do to protect the funds. And so you do what you have to do. But we were talking about this before and talking a little bit about what caused the bank run. And, as a startup founder, you have to protect the funds at all costs, but that then caused essentially the bank run. And so for startup founders like me who read the news literally 10 minutes too late, could have collapsed my business. And you do what you have to do and you have to win. But had I read the news 10 minutes earlier, would I have done the same thing and removed the capital? Yeah, probably. I wouldn't have had a second thought about the people that it would have affected within the ecosystem. But it's just crazy to think that that action caused that domino effect. And so crazy times.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like, I think we both were young during 2008. Don't remember what that was like. I'm sure it was pretty crazy, but to live through that now, be a part of it, be connected to stuff, have it affect you personally is a totally different feeling. And just like you mentioned, like this whole thing started over a couple tweets and a couple, podcasts or news outlets covering it. And then it spread quickly. All the way down to like, I am moving my funds out of my bank just to make sure I'm safe. So it is crazy how far it spreads. And again, it's like, you can't ever time it perfect, right? Like some people got it out fine. There's very few. And we were talking about this too. They were doing victory laps around the people that had money stuck, which is nuts. Should not be doing that. And yeah, just a weird week, right? It even when you get money to a safe place, you're like, is this safe for how long, right?
Yeah.
Like how much do I need to diversify, or what do I need to diversify into?
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that this is the bottom of the market either. I think we're a few months out from the bottom of the market, just personal opinion. And we've seen it. It's crazy to think where we were just in terms of metrics with Metaintro just a few months ago with the number of jobs that were being posted every month, all the way to now. I literally had just a content creator post something for us on our YouTube channel about why it's so hard to land a job in community and marketing right now in this market. And so outside of SVB and the crash and everything happening within the crypto space, the job seekers are definitely feeling it right now. It's frustrating. Not a lot of companies are hiring. We're also noticing that a lot of companies are farming applicants, which is not cool. And I think everybody all around is just feeling the heat.
I agree. Yeah, from a recruiter's perspective, being a recruiter right now is very scary. You're either at a place and hoping you make it to the next day, but your jobs are probably getting lighter and it's getting slower and you're starting to maybe get a little bit more worried, or you're laid off and kind of in between and, there's nobody hiring. So why would they need recruiters? We were talking a little bit before the pod about that, right? Like if you're not hiring, probably don't need a big recruiting team, and where are you going to go? Because nobody else is hiring either. And then from a job seeker's perspective, it is just so competitive. If you watch a job get posted anywhere in the first probably 24 hours, there's over a couple hundred applicants to 1,000 applicants, and they're all really top talent. So if we're in the middle of it and we're not to the bottom, I'm kind of scared where the bottom is. And we were joking, we did the beginning of the year and like calling out how we think the year is going to be. And I said pessimistic, and I'm feeling responsible for this. So
it's all your
apologize for that. Feeling more positive. I'm hoping we're on the up and up. But I don't know. I agree. It still feels like there's more to shake out, and I don't know how long that's going to take before we get to the other side of it.
Yeah. Well, we have all of these job fairs that are coming up, as you know, which we're all very excited about. One of the fairs not doing as hot as some of the other fairs, and so we're calling it a resource fair instead. We'll be giving applicants and job seekers and attendees that are there a ton of resources that they can utilize and go through the exercise of during the bear market. So that's like leveling up their skill set, giving them access to educational resources, dusting off their resume, taking better professional headshots, doing these things that are super important anyways, but maybe more so important in a bear market to help your resume stand out. And so it'll be interesting to see what the tone is of the job fair, like with job seekers and recruiters that are there. If they're excited, if they're worried, if they're frustrated, if they're optimistic. So I will report back in about 2 weeks with an update on that.
That's going to be interesting. My first conference this year will be Consensus. So
You're going
to see. I am. So I'm going with a few of my teammates and probably some of the hiring managers I work with, but going to be interesting, right? I mean, like middle of April, so it's still about a month away. A lot can happen up until then. And definitely, kind of like you said, I'm hoping people aren't leaving crypto. I know some are, and attendance is probably going to be lower than what it was in past years, but definitely going to be interesting to see what the tone is for sure.
Yeah.
People are still hanging in there.
Consensus is an interesting one too, because those tickets are really expensive, right?
They were ungodly expensive for what they were last year. They even had like this top tier, like Coachella artist style pass that I think was like $9,000, which
No
I don't
way.
know. I'll have to maybe put the link for the ticket rate so you can see the comparison, but it was like VIP backstage pass, the green room access for like $9,000. So I didn't get one of those. Just got one of the just general entries, nothing crazy for me, but yeah, quite odd. Definitely seems like they're trying to make some money back on the tickets, probably because of lower attendance. But
yeah, what's your goal out of Consensus? Are you able to share that? Like, hope.
I mean,
takeaways?
I think for me, like personally, I mean, kind of like you said, the mood on the market. Like Consensus is more, I'd say, like kind of business oriented, more institutional focused. So are they scared, right? Are they backing down, or maybe some of the speakers backing out? Like, what does that look like? And trying to see like the sentiment amongst kind of some of the bigger players.
Mm-hmm.
And then professionally, I mean, where I'm at, we're still hiring. We're still looking for folks. So again, it's trying to network, trying to get to some people that may be passive or, maybe looking for new opportunities, and just trying to, get the story out about what we're up to. So I think the traditional stuff, but yeah, the last conference I went to was permissionless, and that was when I was with Coinbase and they had announced the offer rescinds as we were at the conference.
No way.
Yeah, I have kind of again, I had a dagger in my heart when that happened, and it was very hard to kind of avoid some of those conversations as things were playing out that we didn't even know of because we weren't really, in office. So I'm hoping this next conference is going to go a lot smoother. Hopefully good news, good market, good things coming all around.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you. I hope it's a good conference. That one's not on my radar, but or on the list of conferences for this year, just given the prices. But maybe next year.
You have plenty of enough conferences.
I have enough.
I was going to say, if you were about to add it, I was going to say, I can be a presence there. I can network through you. We'll probably, like I said, we did probably last episode, we're going to add the conference kind of schedule, the tour dates. Metaintro is making some merch. They're going to have some cool stuff. And yeah, definitely come ready to learn some skills. I mean, even though it's a bear market, even though there's craziness going on, right? Like conferences are still a really good way to get your name out there. And if you're serious about crypto, a lot of people getting out of crypto. So there's some really good opportunities maybe on the horizon for you.
Yeah. Well, since last week, I think we added one more.
Where are you going, Lacey? What's on the list?
Right now, we're looking at doing a job fair at University of Miami. So that will be a non-Web3 event, but you can't help more people make the career transition into Web3 if you're preaching to the choir. So I think this will be an interesting opportunity to chat with people who might not know as much about the Web3 space and are curious about it, or have nothing to do with it. And we might be their first interaction with a Web3 company. So TBD on that one, but we'll link it in the show notes below.
I'm sure there'll be 3 more conferences by the next podcast recording. You've kind of made a like niche in the space, right? Like you were telling me, you've become kind of like a really good go-to resource for companies looking to set up these job fairs, because it is different, right? It's not the traditional, blah, boring job fair. You guys are making it super interesting and actually innovative. So yeah, I'm excited to see.
Very random, but not random at the same time. So
it all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It all connects.
It does. So we have 2 questions to quickly answer. Let me get this up. All right. Black Beauty asks, hello guys, I need a Web3 job. How do I start searching or applying? I don't have any experience yet, but I believe I have to start from somewhere for me to gain the experience. Can you help? Yeah, this is a question that we get often. Yeah. And I feel like there are a ton of good resources at this point to be able to figure that out. And this is a tough question to answer given that we don't know what kind of job Black Beauty is asking for.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of job. I mean, technical right now, might be a little bit easier to get into because it is, hey, you learn X language and you then do a course or a certification, maybe a program, maybe get placed. I mean, that I feel like has a more traditional route of like checking boxes on things you need to do. Still tough. I mean, still competitive, but maybe a little bit more straightforward. We've heard a lot from creative folks that are in similar positions, right? Like, how do I become a creative Web3 person or social? It's a little tougher because you probably have to create some project content or, just put some content out to kind of get the ball moving. But I think the biggest thing just goes back to kind of education. I mean, watch YouTube videos, watch podcasts, join the, Metaintro Discord, starting engaging with community, trying to network. I don't think there's like a one size fits all secret sauce. You just kind of got to do a little bit of everything until you find somewhere. And then when you get somewhere, continue to hone down on your skills. Cause like I said, with the market and everything, people are condensing and they're looking for people that can do a lot of stuff. So hang in there. I mean, be patient. It took me, I wanted to work in crypto. I think if I've got it, I'm going to put the screenshot up, but I applied to Coinbase in like 2015 or 16, and I didn't work there until 2021. So
oh, wow.
Took a long time to get into crypto. And now that I'm here, I'm not going. But you had to kind of go through a couple different routes to even get there. So be patient if it takes a little bit.
Patience. That might be the title of this episode.
Yeah, patience in a bear market, for sure.
Well, questions are light this week, just given how crazy it was over the week. So we didn't get to collecting as many of the questions that were asked in our Discord channel. Again, we have a recruiting channel in our Discord. If you have any questions that you'd want us to answer on the next pod, please drop them in the comments, either in that channel or in the comment section below. But in the meantime, I think the next time I will see you guys and see you, Alex, will be at one of the conferences. So, something.
Yeah, I know we were talking about, and for anybody listening, we're working on getting like the in real life recordings set up at some of these conferences. So Lacey and I could probably record some if we're at one together, or again, we'll be spinning off some different content. Was watching some of the ones Lacey did at ETH Denver. Super cool stuff. If you're looking through the channels, definitely take a look. Some different content outside of just recruiting, but talking through, founders, stories, products. Gotta say, you guys are really pushing out some cool stuff. So
thank you.
All of that coming soon, regardless of the bear. More content.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you on the next one.
See you then.